All right, we're back with FF7, but tragically for you, happily for me, I have something else I want to babble about first, which is, of course, very FF7 related. I was thinking there are sort of three types of kind of fan bases of characters. And the first of these three categories is liking characters that look cool, that feel cool. Doesn't have to be all aesthetic, but I think this is the most aesthetic category. That might not be true at all, but this is a very aesthetic category. Um, People who really want their characters to look and feel cool. Vincent is a very popular character from FF7, I think primarily with this kind of fan. Kane from FF4, Shadow from FF6, a whole slew of villains from all over the place. Um, for some, this will include Squall from FF8. For some, this will include Orin from FF10. In general, dark colors, usually black, red, sometimes blues, are going to be the main aesthetic. And I think this is going to appeal. It doesn't have to be this. This is a bit stereotyping, but like, and obviously these are RPGs, which appeal to a different fan base than other games. But this is where it's going to have some crossover with people who are into like Gears of War or quite differently anime fight scenes and like the character that looks cool and does so like without a drop of sweat descending. This is the kind of that's the kind of like it's clearly supposed to seem cool and invincible in a like tough way. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and not all these things are the same at all. I'm just trying to hit enough different things that, because each person's going to interpret it a bit differently, but that it gives a sense of the kind of swath of the public this hits. There's also a version that's kind of suavely cool. You get like FF6 Edgar or FF12 Balthier. Some might say FF9 Zidane or Zidane gets in there. I think also just because the aesthetic is so great, for some people, Vivi will work here. I would generally say his appeal is mostly in other categories, but I think there are people who Vivi would work as an example here. And for me, this was a group of characters that appealed to me more as a kid than as an adult, right? The characters that had a cool aesthetic seemed instantly like powerful or in some sense domineering were more appealing to me then than they are now. There's also a whole trajectory starting probably with FF10 Lulu, but more clearly with FF10 2 Pain, of this role being given to women with generally it gets less so on the aesthetic, but generally dark aesthetics, especially with Lulu and Pain. Later, less so with Ash and Lightning, and given lots of lines like "Let's kick their ass," right? And the tough character lines. I think in general, Final Fantasy does a pretty poor job with these characters. I kind of feel worst about Ash because I think she could have developed into something if she had actually just been the main character of that game. And one of the many errors of making Vaughn the main character is it meant they never really did the character development with Ash that they clearly should have. For instance, I think one of the best scenes in that game is Ash saying, it's been a long time since I played this. My memory's not great, but saying something on the lines of like, I would never give up my honor, right? And Bosch, a much better character, saying, really? Because if it saved one life, I'd happily give up my honor. My honor isn't worth that. Lives are, right? And there is some attempts at development for her over the course of the game, but I think she never really gets all that far past where she starts. And I think she ends up being a kind of failed character in that game, in my opinion. Has many failed characters that do not have the arcs or do not pull off what the game wants them to. And I think in general, the cool male characters in the Final Fantasy series are more likely to be given actual arcs and thus be more appealing to me. Um, Lightning was supposed to be a female Cloud, right? And Cloud starts FF7, as we saw, by going, after this job, I'm out of here, just pay me the money, at the end of the first mission. And at the end of the first kind of section of FF13, one character wants to grieve, and Lightning sticks a sword to his throat and goes like, fuck you, let's get out of here, also I hate you. And there's some backstory there, that explains it a bit more. But there's something a lot nastier about how she does it than how Cloud does it. And it's partly the game having voice acting and kind of wanting to have this big dramatic moment. Like the way that scene is shot and stuff is clearly trying to be this like dramatic, impactful, oh my god moment. And I think that game kind of wants those big moments, but doesn't think about what it means for the characters. And that ends up, I think, being a huge blunder as well, and just instantly made me really dislike this character for a long time. Well, instead, you kind of go with Cloud, oh, that dude sucks, right? And then he can move beyond that, not like, that dude's evil. And I think that's pretty different. So I think quite tragically, when they started doing more of these roles female, they kind of messed it up every time. I think Lulu's the best version, and she is the least of this. And yeah, I think that's a shame. In general, for me, of the cool characters, I think Orin works really well. But I generally think the cool characters that work best are the ones that I consider compelling in other categories, not the ones that are compelling just here. And Square kind of has a habit of the characters they're more likely to give some depth to are male characters, and that's a bummer, you know. Okay. But I guess what I wanted to say here was I think Cloud is clearly in this category, which is not to say he's not in other categories. You can appeal in multiple categories. Just for quick jumping ahead, my argument here is going to be that Cloud is the only main character that has serious appeal in all three categories, and that is a big reason why he is so popular. This is not to say he is the best character. This is not to say these categories are why you should like characters, but I think they are often reasons why people do like characters. And if you look at Cloud and you look at the ways people tend to be fans of characters, he has some appeal for all. He clearly, like Lightning was designed to be the female Cloud. And the female Cloud, because the makers of FF13 were, idiots compared to the makers of FF7 at the time, all they saw was like tough cool, right? That was clearly what they saw in Cloud, so that's clearly what they tried to emulate. From Cloud's hair to his clothing to like doing backflips off the train, Cloud is very obvious to him being like, I'm too cool for this, right? Cloud is very obviously has some appeal to at least some people who are looking for a cool character. That doesn't mean everyone will find the same thing cool. That doesn't mean you will find him cool. But Cloud very clearly has some serious cool appeal, and there's a reason when they were saying Lightning's going to be the female Cloud, that's what they latched onto because that's what they saw in him, and they missed that there was some other stuff going on there. As I said, I think like if we compare to others here, Squall, I think a lot of people find cool. He, has very much you know, don't talk to me, you're an idiot vibes, and dark aesthetic, um, in big dramatic fights, all that. Zidane less so, somewhat in the suave category, but I think clearly less so. And Titus, despite, or I guess it's technically Titus, but I refuse to pronounce it that way. Titus, despite having an opening scene where it's clearly supposed to be exciting and he's great at blitzball, and this opening scene with dramatic metal music is really trying to get you pumped up and into him. The rest of the game is just not, and obviously Titus is not cool. If we go on to Vaughn, obviously not cool. If we go on to Lightning, very clearly cool, right? If we go back to Terra, not really. That's not really what she's about. If we go to Bart's has a little claim in the suave category. If we go to Cecil, or Cecil, however you want to pronounce it, depending on if you're British or not, we'll say you're not British, so Cecil. I think Cecil definitely with the start of the Dark Knightness, but that game is just written so ridiculously it's hard for me to take it seriously, and they do a bit better with Kane in that category. All right, we spent 10 minutes on this, but second category, kind of fun and cheerful. I think a lot of FF9 is clearly this, right? A lot of FF9 is we're going to make these characters enjoyable to be around. They're going to be goofy in their own way. They're all going to be fun and pleasant. And that's not going to mean they can't have more subtlety behind them. But like, the game is not trying to convince you Steiner is cool. Maybe some people think Amaranth's kind of cool or Freya, but these are characters that don't get too much screen time. And the more a character is given screen time, Maybe Beatrix is probably the character people come out of that game thinking is the coolest. But she is like an eye patch. She is generic, like, not generic, but she is conventional, like, here's what makes someone look cool to us stuff going on. And other characters mostly don't. And I think people who really enjoy kind of spending time with these people and having it be fun, FF9 is going to be a really appealing game. I actually think this is quite a different fan base, but I think it appeals in a similar way. So maybe I'm dividing the fan bases up wrong. But FF5 is basically all the characters are written in exactly the same voice, but they're all fun and cheerful and have good lines. And that's another game where I think if you like this category, FF5's cast might be appealing. But that they're all kind of in the same voice rather than different goofies might be off putting. Might not be, depends on the person. Um, I like the fun and cheerful category, but it's also not make or break for me. Um, but yeah, Cloud definitely also qualifies here. Here is somewhere where like Squall doesn't qualify, right? Lightning doesn't qualify, just blatantly not remotely close to qualifying. If Ash is FF12's main character, obviously doesn't qualify. But Cloud is a character who has a decent amount of cool appeal and is also very clearly in this category. And some of it's him, you know, he's the Let's Mosey guy, right? He says some truly goofy stuff that those other characters do not get in their dialogue. But also, he's just put in sillier circumstances. The when we're in the slums and he has to wear a dress and Eris makes fun of him. When a scene we didn't get, but the famous Mookie scene. When I had some other example in my head, but I think it's gone now. But there's a whole bunch of situations. Like, oh, the play, right? The play. When we were at the Gold Saucer and did the play with whoever your date is with. Like, these are just ridiculous scenes to stick him in, right? Despite him very clearly having a cool aesthetic and appealing to a cool audience, that doesn't mean they can't also put him in goofy scenes where they're making fun of him or making him look ridiculous. And so I think Cloud also, like, to the we want characters to be enjoyable and amusing crowd, like Squall and Lightning aren't doing that. Cloud still is, right? And he's not going to be as strong a contender here as, say, much of FF9's cast is, but actually he's pretty high up there for, I think, who is appealing if that's what you want in your games. And the final category I labeled in my head, that's deep, man. But the characters were like, there's development and backstory and emotional inner life. And we're all gonna, much like the cool thing, but even more so, we're all gonna find this in different people and different stories, right? There are different stories that are gonna click with us. So someone might be given minimal screen time, but it's done in a way where it really clicks for us and it feels profound and meaningful. And for someone else, they'll be like, that was like 3 seconds of the game. How could you possibly have been invested in that? Because it didn't click with them the same way. So obviously, this is an incredibly subjective category. I do think there's a lot of characters about whom it would be a stretch, either because there just isn't enough time for it to be given real depth, um, or because the thing that's driving them, the like, or you know, it's not always a single thing. Characters are more complex than that, but the kind of the main things driving them, I just don't think. I think it's hard to say are very interesting. So I certainly have feelings of like if someone said certain characters they found super profound, I'd be like, well, maybe we shouldn't have conversations then because I think we just value very different things. But there's other ones where like I don't happen to find it profound, but you might, and I would be curious why you do, right? Or what in it really appealed to you. And I think there's also a version where something is kind of hinted at and someone reads into it stuff they want to read. And we're all going to do this to some extent. You know, whenever you start liking a character, you're going to start reading things into them that you want to see. And yeah, there's going to be some of that with everyone. And there's not. And we shouldn't try to keep that completely under wraps. We should get joy and get kind of feelings of connection to the characters we like. But I think it's maybe not as clear now, but especially coming into this episode and where we're going to go in this one, that Cloud also very firmly lands in the that steep man category. And much of it's going to come later, but Cloud is someone I could think as a kid was cool, and as an adult think is an incredibly interesting human being they're portraying. And of course, we haven't really gotten to the stuff that makes that the case. But I think this means Cloud is reasonably to very compelling in all three categories, and or has a very decent chance to be to any like random individual. And again, that doesn't make him a better character than other FF leads, but it makes him one that you can see why he is so broadly appealing. I think Bartz has a bit from each category, but not so much into that. He doesn't really have any that's deep, man. But he is fun and cheerful, and he has a bit of cool. Uh, Cecil, I think, is just the writing in that game. They try to do one deep thing, and I don't think it's pulled off. Maybe you think it is, so you could categorize him differently. Um, Also, he is not fun and cheerful, but there is such ridiculous dialogue around him. I suppose you could count it, but I think it just feels like it has nothing to do with him. I think he's supposed to be just basically cool, and he isn't for me. I thought Kane was when I played FF4. I didn't think Cecil was. FF5, Bart's mostly in the fun and cheerful category. Maybe some that's cool, maybe some cool, but mostly fun and cheerful. FF6 Terra, I think, is almost entirely in the that's deep man category. Um, but I think Celis is just so much more successful there that she's just very clearly outshone. Um, and if you like Loki or Locke, um, I would put him in the fun and cheerful category and say he doesn't have a ton going elsewhere unless you find like the thief thing really cool, which many people do. So maybe he gets some there. While Edgar is firmly in the why am I keep saying it Edgar? Edgar is firmly in the like cool suave category. Uh, FF7 Cloud is a lot of all three. FF8 Squall is pretty clearly in the cool and that steep man categories, not at all in fun and cheerful. FF9 Zidane or Zidane. It's funny, I say Zinedine Zidane, but I say Zidane because I grew up, saying Zidane. FF9 Zidane Tribal, very much fun and cheerful, maybe some suave cool depending on your feeling. I would say generally the scenes with a character named Garland towards the end that are trying to do more of the that's deep man stuff are some of the weakest parts of the game. I think they do not pull those off. It's a very good game, but they don't pull those off. And Zidane doesn't get the kind of trifecta of threat, but maybe he does for you. Maybe he does for you. But I think he's mostly in the fun and cheerful category. FF10 Titus has some fun and cheerful, and some that's deep man, and no cool, except for the opening blitzball. FF12 Vaughn is, I think, entirely fun and cheerful and not that great at that. FF12 really is. They didn't pull off what they wanted to. And I don't know why they made the decisions they did. It's kind of funny because like the game starts and you're given a character, and that character is like a fake lead, right? You play him for the intro, and then something happens, and you are playing someone else, and that person is Vaughn. And honestly, I feel like that should have been a second fake lead because this character has nothing to do with anything that matters. And it's not to say, like, obviously a story can be interesting because the person you're taking control of, sort of like Titus in FF10, though he does have connections to the story, but he's someone coming into this new world without familiarity to it, right? You take someone that's like basically a rat catcher kind of thing with weird dreams of being a sky pirate, and you throw them into this like complex political military landscape that they don't really have connection to, but suddenly they're making decisions in. That can be really interesting, and they don't have to have had connections to the world. But then that character needs to have interesting thoughts or be figuring out interesting things about it. Um, like Squall, I think, is a good example, right? Squall is someone who, as far as we know, has basically no connection to anything happening for a long time. Then it turns out he has some, because again, those are better made games. But even if he didn't, because Squall has a rich internal life of thinking, his way of interacting with it is going to be so much more interesting than Vaughn's. FF12 is a bummer. FF13 Lightning is very clearly, we need to make the female Cloud. What is Cloud? He's cool. Is he anything else? Not that we remember, because we're not good at making stories anymore. And so Lightning ends up being, I think, also a kind of failed character. They obviously disagree, and the fan base clearly disagrees with me, given that she got 3 games. But I guess she's not really in the second game. 2 games are not very important. But it's obvious when she does appear in the second game, they are trying to make her so cool. right? That's clearly what they're going for. And I think for a lot of people, they must have succeeded, given that, again, that's a lot of games to get. But I do think it's a somewhat narrower appeal. So, anyways, okay, let's get to FF7. We're Cloud, this character who is, in at least these three aspects, a more well-rounded lead character than I think any other FF has. Ooh, have we fought these before? I don't know. Let's attack. Actually, let's limit break because we need limit break practice. We have our death blow set up with Tifa, where we have also upped her luck, so she just got a crit there, so she's going to be getting more crits. Wow. So right now, Nanaki, Piggy Man's limit break, Nanaki, Red 13, whatever you want to call him, does 1600 damage. It is only a level 1. Tifa does 1600 on a crit, which means if her death blow hits, because that's double damage, plus the added attack, she's going to do... So here we have to dodge both the lightning and the other stuff. So I'm going to wait for the lightning to go. And then... Oh. Great work, mate. Automatic battle? Yeah. So she's doing like 2400 if her move hits, 1.5 times as much damage as he is doing on a crit. Now, of course, this is not some like super unique feature of Tifa. I could have this set up on anyone, but it's gonna get even better in the not as far away future as it used to be. So, yeah, go Tifa. All right, let's get ready to run. Lightning went. Probably had an opportunity there. Let's wait for the lightning again. I'm bad at this. I should be counting the green as well. This probably has a pattern to it. Alright, so while we show off these impressive skills, I should have been failing to run through this while talking about my extended, boring intro. That would have been a smart thing to do. Didn't think of doing that. Alright. But yeah, I think it's, that was clearly an opening. That was probably an opening too. Alright, so 2... That was terrible timing. I was thinking there's also the background, which gets hazier and less hazy, and I was thinking, this is so unhazy, I should just go for it. Maybe if it's hazy, that's a tell. But I am doing terrible here. On the other hand, Tifa's doing quite well. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think these are like, obviously everyone has their own versions of them. Obviously what people find deep or cool or charming is going to vary person to person. All right, we're going to wait for the haze to get a little lighter. Okay, good. We're going to wait for the lightning. And we're going to go after the green. There we go. Yeah, but I think it might just be that people found Cloud really, really cool, and that's the reason for it, and the other stuff I'm reading into it is meaningless, and just not how fandom works, that fandom is so devoted to what they find cool that that's just the main feature. But I think it's quite interesting with Cloud that you can get on board with him that way and then find other things in him. And if you're not on board with him for that, there's also other stuff to find. And I think like there's a reason FF10 Titus is a fairly unpopular lead. And it's because he's not cool. And I think he's a really good character. I'm really pro Titus, but he's obviously not cool. And I think people who like him and dislike him would mostly agree on that. There's certainly going to be some people who like him who go, yeah, Blitzball's the greatest thing to ever happen. But aside that crowd, I think most would agree Titus is not cool. And you can still like him, right? And I hope you do, because I certainly do. But I think, yeah, it's not a mystery why Cloud is so broadly liked. Obviously has his haters because FF7 has their haters, as you may know if you are a triple triad connected person. What is this? What happened? Calm down, Tifa. That's rude. Fuck off, Cloud. Sephiroth is near. Anything could happen. We know where that is. This is Nibelheim. Nibelheim. But why? A dream? An illusion? This is an illusion Sephiroth made up. He's trying to confuse us. It'll be alright. As long as we know it's an illusion, there's nothing to be afraid of. So Cloud has gone from very confident to I don't know if I can go on. What if something happens? To we have to go on. If something happens, we'll deal with it, but I'm ready to go. To coming here where he is extremely confident right now. Come on, let's keep going. Yeah, you're right. Look. Hello, Sephiroth. All right, let's go. We see Zack and two men. Cloud's not here. I wonder who this is. This is not the first time we're seeing this memory, but the last time we saw Sephiroth and Zack reaching Nibelheim, Cloud was with them, hence Piggyman commenting. Did I say Zack? I'm spoiling stuff. My bad, right? So last time we saw this, Satifa saying stop, Sephiroth. My brain went. We're coming back to the present. Last time we saw, it wasn't where we see the black-haired man, we saw Cloud, right? Same clothes, actually, too. Same sword. Stop, Sephiroth. This is so stupid, says Cloud. Sephiroth laughs. Keeps laughing. Good laughing animation. Alright, let's talk to Piggy. Is this illusion going to continue forever? How do we get out of it? Cloud, it's just an illusion. Don't worry about it. What's next? Stop it already. This is terrible. Did Sephiroth do this? We are now seeing the burned village. This is what actually happened 5 years ago. But it's probably not me that's going to come out of the Shinra mansion. He's going to try and show us another stupid illusion. And once again, we see the black-haired man. I really screwed up when I said their name, but we will call the black-haired man Zack. Just a randomly chosen name. We're trying out, seeing how it fits. See, didn't I tell you? Hey, it's you. You're still sane, right? Again, this is a scene we've seen before. Then come over and help me. I don't want to watch this. Cloud, don't watch. And it was the exact same scene, except we saw Cloud there. I'll check this house. You check that one over there. What's wrong, Tifa? I told you before, right? As long as we know that it's just an illusion, there's no need to be scared. So Cloud, ready for what will come, is not being fooled by illusions. You all right? We were in an illusion. Sephiroth, I know you're listening. I know what you want to say. That I wasn't in Nibelheim 5 years ago. And we also know Genova called Cloud a puppet. It's kind of weird. That's it, isn't it? I see you finally understand. What you're trying to say is that you want to confuse me, right? But even making me see those things won't affect me. I remember it all. The heat of the fire, the pain in my body, and in my heart. Oh, is that so? You are just a puppet. You have no heart, and cannot feel any pain. How can there be any meaning in the memory of such a being? What I have shown you is reality. What you remember, that is the illusion. Cloud shrugs. Can we move around? We can move around. Let's talk to Dead Guy. Dead Guy can't talk to us. Cloud. Cloud. Alright, let's talk to Sephiroth. Run a little circle around him? No, we can't run in a circle around him. We can't get behind him. Alright, we'll talk to him. Do you understand? I don't want to understand, but I want to ask you one thing. Why are you doing this? Ha ha ha. I want to take you back to your real self, the one who gave me the black materia that day. Who would have ever thought a failed experiment would prove so useful? Hojo would die if he knew. Hojo? What does he have to do with me? 5 years ago you were constructed by Hojo, piece by piece, right after Nibelheim was burnt. I think it's supposed to be pronounced Nibelheim, but not going to do that. A puppet made up of vibrant Genova cells, her knowledge, and the power of the Mako, also supposed to be pronounced Mako. But, again, you can't tell me what to do, modern FF. You're not the boss of me, you're terrible. An incomplete Sephiroth clone, not even given a number. That is your reality. So all these kind of black blobby things we've seen that Sephiroth was getting rid of, saying they don't need them anymore, this was clearly the reunion of those, all the Sephiroth clones, and they were each given numbers. We also saw Hojo, who has put numbers on many things, put a number on Red 13. And there is a number on each one of the black kind of blobby things we see. And we also have some good evidence that those could be used by Sephiroth, right? And Sephiroth, of course, used Cloud to get the black materia. Not even given a number. That is your reality. Drugs. Classic Cloud. Alright, we can talk again. Cloud. Cloud, don't listen to him. Close your ears. Close your eyes. What's wrong, Tifa? I'm not affected by it. I wasn't paying attention to him. I mean, you were paying attention. All that talk of Hojo constructing you is a lie. Don't we have our memories together? Being kids together. Starlit nights. Ha ha ha. Tifa. Why are you so worried and scared by these words? This is true. Just over and over throughout this scene, she has been telling Cloud not to listen to him. Which either means that there is something true here she wants to keep Cloud from thinking about, or she thinks Cloud is so fragile and so able to be possessed or controlled that he can't hear things that will, send him for a loop. Shall I show everyone here what's in your heart? Turns and protects her heart. Good move. Ha ha ha. You look like you're not feeling well. Tifa? Is Sephiroth right? Alright. Let's talk to Dead Guy again first. Nope, can't do it. Cloud. Alright, they have not given much dialogue to the extra character in the scene. Cloud. Why are you so scared? Don't worry about me. I'm alright. He is keeping it together. No matter how confused I am, I'll never believe a word that Sephiroth says. It's true that sometimes I can't figure out who I am. There's a lot of things muddled up in my memories. But, Tifa, you said, long time no see, Cloud, right? Those words will always support me. I'm the one you grew up with. I'm Cloud of Nibelheim. No matter how much I lose faith in myself, that is the truth. It is true, right? Sephiroth's story just doesn't check out that Cloud was constructed 5 years ago. Because we have these memories, and we know Tifa brought up these memories that she brought up on her own, right? She brought up the promise they made as kids. That's something, it's not like he said it and then she repeated it, right? So he constructed a story and she went along with it or something like that. She had the memory. Now, he remembered it too. Maybe he was just going along, but it sure seemed like he remembered it too. Which means Sephiroth's story seems like it doesn't make sense. And so it makes sense that Cloud... It's not making sense to Cloud either, right? And thus, it's not putting him in an existential crisis. But, for some reason, That's why you shouldn't be so scared. For some reason, it does seem to be putting Tifa in an existential crisis. And I think that's kind of interesting, right? That Cloud's not too bothered by this. Some of the dialogue's a little weird, like, I wasn't even paying attention. Like, obviously, he was like, I just have one more question for you. And then immediately after goes, yeah, I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to assume that was weird translation or something, like, not quite what it meant to say. But I think it's very interesting here, right? To Cloud, he has stuff to hold on to here. But for some reason, Tifa doesn't seem to. Tifa's worried. No matter what anyone else says to me, it's your attitude that counts. No, that's not true, Cloud. What's not? Aren't I the same Cloud you grew up with? That's not what I mean. I don't know how to say it. Cloud, I need some time. Just give me a little time. Cloud, don't blame Tifa. The ability to change one's looks, voice, and words is the power of Jenova. Which again explains why the Sephiroth we've been fighting the whole way has always been Jenova. Inside of you, Jenova has merged with Tifa's memories, creating you. But then who are Tifa's memories of, right? It's got to merge with something there. And she recognized Cloud. Out of Tifa's memory, a boy named Cloud might have just been a part of them. Cloud. So, okay, here's a version. Kids and adults don't look the same. So I think here's our kind of most plausible version if we believe Sephiroth. Tifa knew someone named Cloud. Nibelheim was destroyed. We know Tifa. I believe we know. Might be making this up that we know this, but I believe we know that Tifa was hurt there, and Zangan. She eventually left Nibelheim with Zangan in the aftermath of the city being destroyed. He took her away from it. She knew someone named Cloud. Cloud died. But with everyone kind of injured and hurt, but why would they merge this like created creature with her memories? Maybe they merged like everyone with memories. Maybe that explains why when we returned to Nibelheim, the people there were like, I'm from here. How dare you say this town was destroyed? That they took people and somehow merged newly built people with the memories. Though it seems like the other newly built people, not Sephiroth clones. So, something like that, I think, is the closest thing to a narrative we're getting from Sephiroth. Maybe it was an accident that the memories were merged in. But I think that's the version that Sephiroth's giving that's most consistent with that Tifa did know someone named Cloud as a child. Please don't think right now. Ha ha ha. Think, Cloud. There's this funny way that when you want to explain something to someone, sorry, I can't speak. When you want to explain something to someone and you're trying to get them to a place and like different ways you could start the story will immediately make them think certain things, right? Maybe you're telling the story of something that went wrong and you want them to know that you are not to blame, but you know that at the start of the story it will sound like you are, and you don't know how to get past that part to the explanation, and you can't start with the explanation because that doesn't make sense, and you're stuck with a kind of, there's not a way to tell this story where they won't start reading into it early, stuff that you don't want them to read into. And sometimes like people doing this, of course, are trying to like lie and mislead to people, like the classic like I cheated on you and I'm trying to make you not really understand, because understanding would usually be like, yeah, you cheated on me, you're horrible, I'm done with you. But if someone, say, is trying to convince someone they cheated on that it's okay and has some kind of explanation, surely not justified, but some kind of explanation after, right? It can be tricky to get to it. And they're probably trying to gaslight and other stuff. But it's interesting. How do you tell someone something where the first things you need to tell them will make them jump to some new conclusions, and they will have jumped to them and held on to them firmly enough by the time you get to the other stuff you need to say that it can be really difficult to talk to people in certain situations. And I think that's sort of what we're, seeing here with Tifa's going, don't think, and she's also going, I need more time to figure this out. Because whatever she wants to say to Cloud, she doesn't know how to say it in a useful way, right? Not saying she cheated on it. Obviously, that's not remotely relevant to this. But because A, they're not together. But I get the kind of situation where there's something where you haven't figured out a way to say it that feels safe and controlled to you, right? And that can be really difficult to do. And so she both doesn't want him to think, and she wants time to figure out how to say something or how to think through something for herself as well. Think, Cloud. Cloud? Oh, excuse me. You never had a name. Might have gone into over-villain voice there, not sure. Did you hear the train in the background? Anyway, shut up, Sephiroth. You still don't understand, then. Oh, and we should also remember, right? Now, maybe we don't know how much to trust Cloud's memories of Nibelheim 5 years ago. But when Cloud and Sephiroth in Cloud's memories went to the reactor that set this whole thing off, it was because Cloud noticed a monster. And Sephiroth was like, interesting, Hojo. This will never make you as good as Gast, but you are infusing these creatures with Mako and creating something more powerful. And Cloud's like, more powerful? But you're more powerful. And Sephiroth freaks out because Sephiroth realizes he might be created too. That he comes kind of out of nothing, appeared as this ultra powerful person, and he freaks out and he goes to the mansion and reads for days and days and days until he finds a story he can. You know how people say, like, something you can live with? We can live with a lot. It's not something he could live with. It's something he could be proud of and that could give him purpose, right? Until he found something that said he's not a monster, he's not inferior, he's not broken in some way. Instead, he's superior, he's better. And that's an incredibly realistic path people take when they are told by some source, you are less than, and they feel entitled to more than that. They've been told more than that. They will often respond by latching on to a version where they get to be really superior in the most important thing. And Sephiroth stays there for days until he builds the story that is satisfying for him. And now he's telling Cloud he was created when Sephiroth's greatest fear, of course, was that he was created. He, Sephiroth. You still don't understand. Then, evil laugh. Sorry, one sec. Just checking how long we've been going. Should probably end this episode sometime soon. We haven't made it very far, have we? I did have a lot to say. Do you remember the picture that we took before we headed for Mount Nibel? Tifa, you remember, right? But there is no way he would know. Classic Cloud shrug. Now, what happened to that picture? The dead body's our photographer. We found a use. Is this it? I actually forgot why that body was there. Do you want to see it? It turned out pretty good. Cloud, don't. I should be in the picture. Even if I'm not in there, no worry. This is just an illusory world Sephiroth made up. Yeah, Cloud's pretty firm. Yeah, we see Sephiroth, we see Tifa, we see this person I am arbitrarily calling Zack. Now, you may remember Zack has actually been mentioned in the story before, so I really shouldn't have given away that name, but that's okay. Just as I thought. This picture's a fake. The truth is in my memory. 5 years ago, I came back to Nibelheim to inspect the reactor. I was 16. The town hadn't changed at all. What did I do? Oh, yeah. I saw my mom. I saw the people in town. Right, his mom said he should find himself an older girl. That was their main conversation. Yeah, I went to Tifa's room. There, I played the piano. I spent the night and went to the reactor in Mount Nibel. I was excited about it. because that was my first mission after becoming first class in soldier. This is also it's both like the things we actually did, but the way we recall things, right? Um, Both when we're getting things right and when we're getting things wrong, right? I've had a number of conversations where I know someone said something, right? Um, Possibly because at the time I like wrote it down for whatever reason. But just like I know someone said something. This was clearly something said. And you will hear people go, but I couldn't have said that because I said this and I said that, and this doesn't make sense with those things, right? So I couldn't have done it because that doesn't make sense to me and I wouldn't do that, right? And the fact is, they did say all those things, right? They are right about the other two things they thought they said, and they are wrong they didn't say this one thing. And what's actually happening is people say lots of contradictory stuff. People say lots of stuff that is not what they believe later or is connected to something in the moment, but that part of it isn't in their head later, or it sounds cruel to them then and it sounded not cruel to them now and not cruel to them at the time. And so suddenly when they hear it later, they go, that couldn't have been me. And we construct stories where it wasn't you, right? Where you can't have said that because it doesn't make sense, because you know these other things happened and this one doesn't fit with that. And the problem is, we all do things that don't fit with both our ideals, but also the other things we say and the other things we're thinking at the time. And that doesn't mean we didn't do those things. And it doesn't mean, and often this means people kind of say, well, I can't have done that, so I'm not blameworthy at all for this. And that's kind of the worst reaction we can have because it locks us into continuing to do it a lot and also not accepting responsibility for what we've done. But the way we tend to fill in stories when we're having trouble remembering stuff is we say the things we can clearly hold on to, the things of this really clearly happened, right? There was this part. I went here, I played the piano. I went here, I talked to mom, right? Those kinds of things. And then we sort of, because this is how our brains work, we fill in stuff that feels like it makes sense. And that stuff we fill in will feel to us about as real as the stuff that actually happened. We're really good at filling in those empty spaces into something that seems plausible to us now. Incidentally, Red 13 behind Cloud is very well camouflaged. But I'm not saying that's what's going on here, that like when he says like he goes and sees his mom or he goes to Tifa's room and plays the piano, that that's not true. But it is the kind of things we start coming up with when we're trying to remember something, and especially when we're trying to do it in a way that affirms ourselves, that makes ourselves have done or have been part of the things we wanted to be part of and not part of the things we didn't want to be part of, is we're gonna say the things we can latch onto, and then we're gonna tell the story that fits those things and fits what we want and fill in all those gaps. So Cloud now says, because that was my first mission after becoming first class in soldier. Soldier. First class? Soldier. When did I enter soldier? So now he's hitting something where he has a gap, right? There's something he does not remember. And note, this fits Sephiroth's timeline of Cloud being created 5 years ago, right? If Cloud's created 5 years ago, he never entered soldier. And now he's missing something. How did I join soldier? And I think there's kind of there's versions of this where the part's missing and you freak out, and there's versions where the part's missing, so you tell yourself, of course it just happened the normal way, it just happened not to remember, or you start filling in what you think is normal. And your brain is a strong accomplice in doing stuff like that. But why can't I remember? So we've gone from Cloud being very confident here to suddenly there is a hole. There's something he should have that he doesn't, and it fits all the wrong timelines. I'm I'm that's right. I didn't have to worry about it because I was Cloud. Let's go, Tifa. I'm all right. Cloud has found something. He's found some explanation. We don't know what it is. I really like the version of different iterations of backstories where you see, oh, we're completely changing characters now. The rest of the villains of the story so far have arrived, specifically Rufus and now Scarlet. Wow, that's amazing. But I really like you get a version of a story and then you start getting different versions of that story. You know, the classic version of this. Is the classic version Yojimbo? That would feel fitting for a triple triad audience. Um, or is it the filmmaker's other movie? Now I'm blanking. But you know, you get different iterations of a story, and what to believe is not always clear. And sometimes, a lot of the time, it's because all the narrators or some of the narrators are unreliable, but they are all unreliable in different ways. And the famous, by the guy who made Seven Samurai, Kurosawa, I think, the famous movie by him, uh, basically every person has told a self-flattering version of what happened, right? Each of the characters has told the version where they were, in some form, whatever it means to them, heroic or noble. And none of them are giving an actual version of what happened. They are all giving a version of events that leads to the right outcomes and flatters themselves. And I think that's a really interesting part of story construction. And having a movie where that's the whole entire thing is kind of interesting. But it's nice when there can be other things in the story as well. And I think FF7 uses that kind of setup well. Wow, that's amazing. Actually, with this new scene starting, maybe now would be a good time to end this video. Sorry we didn't make a ton of progress. I just find these scenes very, very interesting and compelling stuff. So yeah, we're going to stop here with It's All Materia, and I'll see you next time.